Welcome to Conversations for Peace. I'm so glad you have joined me for this episode when I welcome Angela Wittenberg. Angela, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So glad you are here. I know it's a busy season. We're recording right after Thanksgiving, so I know you've been probably hard at it, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Of course, it's a privilege.
I love to start Conversations for Peace by just giving a little introduction myself of our guest, like my first impression, and honestly, my first conversation with you, I believe, was over the phone. That's what I remember, at least.
I think so.
I was walking in Wisconsin at the time. It was the fall of 2020. The pandemic was still pretty bad, and you, I guess, had sent me an email, and then I phoned you back, and you had this crazy vision that you were seeing, and you were just kind of wanting to talk with me about it and talk with churches about it. And so I remembered the passion that was coming through and the courage, let alone like great wisdom. So it was amazing to experience all that. And that phone call I still see myself on the phone walking and talking to you.
It's amazing. That's really surprising to me that you remember that so clearly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it was an important phone call because, as you know, you were the first pastor, the first church that agreed to pray for us on a regular basis. And I believe really strongly that prayer has made all the difference for our program, for Hananiah House.
Yes, Hananiah House, which in 2020 was like just a little spark.
That's right.
Plus, I mean, you had some connection to, I remember there was somebody in California, is it?
Well, yes, my co-founder is in California. Her name is Spring Barnacle, and she has been right alongside the entire way. She just hasn't physically been here, but she is still very, very involved in managing things and doing parts that I'm not very good at.
Yeah, that was the cool thing, because it was like, well, I have this, person, she can help with these aspects, and you really had the heart and the vision for this ministry, which we're going to tell you a little bit about in a minute. But what do you want our listeners to know about you and who you are in general?
I am a wife of 40 years this July.
Holy cow.
Right?
Well, you don't look like you could be married that long. It must have been good.
Well, it must have been harder on him because he looks a little older, if I do say so myself. Yeah. No. And then we have 5 sons.
Wow, I didn't realize you had 5 sons either.
They're all grown now.
Yeah.
19. The youngest is 19.
Oh, wow.
Almost. He'll be 20 at the turn of the year. And
wow, congrats.
We homeschooled all of them all the way through, from beginning to college.
Oh, wow.
So, that was a large part of my life.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, 27,
I bet you did a lot of cooking.
Years. Yes, constant cooking.
How many refrigerators did you have, or do you have?
We still have a deep freeze and 2 refrigerators.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Well,
we live out in the country, and to buy that much for everybody, we didn't want to spend every single day or other day on the road to the grocery store.
Right.
And there wasn't anything close enough to make it practical.
Right.
Now there's a Dollar General not too far.
Oh, there you go. So it's a little too late now, but
a little past the season, yes.
So you've been a wife, you've been a mom. Anything else about you?
Yes. Well, I went to school for journalism. And I always loved doing features, feature stories about people. Broadcast journalism was my degree, actually, and I was always involved in church from the time that I was young, and in college. Very, very transformative years for me. We grew up in Africa.
Wow!
My parents lived overseas. They worked. My dad worked for Union Carbide.
Okay.
And so we lived in West Africa, in Abidjan, in the Côte d'Ivoire, for 5 years. And those years were extremely formative as well. They really gave me a taste of life outside of the United States and I have a worldview that's really of the world that I wouldn't have experienced if my parents hadn't been brave and took us overseas and did the whole thing. So that was really a really important part
Wow.
of.
How old were you then?
I was 8 when we moved and almost 14 when we moved back.
Oh, wow. Yeah, those are very formative years.
Yes,
So.
extremely.
Were you interacting a lot with
Yes.
folks? Okay.
Every day went to the school that was in the area. Basically, they didn't have neighborhood public schools so much. It was more privatized school, and then a few public schools. But you had to be a native Ivoirian to go to the public schools. So
Wow.
we went to an international school. Students from all over the world. My best friend was
Cool.
French. My other best friend was Ivoirian. Anyway, it was a very
That's amazing.
exciting and wonderful time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a wonderful
Are
time.
you still connected with any of those?
No
students?
No, not at all. I went to see my French friend Anne in France when they moved back. They had moved elsewhere from Abidjan, and they moved to France. And I went to visit them one summer in France when I was in college, and she was in college.
Oh, wow,
And so
cool.
That was really neat, and we stayed in touch a little bit, but not.
That's a few years ago.
Yes,
8
quite
years.
a few years ago. quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
So-
Well, that's amazing. I did not know that about you. What
Things
What
you
other
learn.
fun fact do I not know about you? I knew you were a mom, but I did not know you had 5 boys. I'm the youngest of 5 girls, so
Oh.
yeah, 5 boys. That's a lot. And
See, 5 girls
homeschooling.
sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah.
I have 2 granddaughters now. We have 2
Oh,
granddaughters now.
yay, fun.
So that's
It's cute to
interesting.
be a grandmama, too.
Yes.
Do you have a name? Do you have, like,
Nana.
Nana? Okay, I learned when I moved to the South, nobody goes by grandma or grandpa. Like, everybody's got a name. Did you
It's
choose
true.
your name? Or?
I did, and I had great resistance.
Oh.
My husband's family is Jewish, and my kid's grandmother was called Bubby. We all called her Bubby, and I just could not bring myself to call myself Bubby. That's Ethel, not me.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
But the kids all wanted me to be Bubby. All the uncles wanted me to be Bubby, and I said, no, I'm going to be Nana.
There you
So
go. I'm Nana.
They allowed that to happen, and now it's very natural.
Well, that's fun. That's fun. So there's something else keeping you busy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes. I have a lot
definitely.
of family time. The boys 3 of them are here, 2 of them are out of state, but they come back a lot.
None are out of the country.
No,
Okay. That's
not
good.
at this point.
Oh.
You never know what's coming. So.
Exactly. Well, tell me, like, what are you most passionate about that, like, really just feeds your soul outside of work? Is there anything?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The thing that feeds my soul the most is my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
It informs everything about my life. It always will. Always, maybe not, but certainly since high school.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my decisions, everything I have leaned into, if I wasn't on the path that I feel like I was called to, I had to stop and backtrack, or in God's grace, sometimes He would prevent me from going in the direction that I thought was best. So I learned over the years that if there wasn't peace, it wasn't the right path for me.
It wasn't the right way to go.
Right.
That's cool.
And so I talk a lot to my clients and to my friends, and over the years my children, about, you have to follow the peace. You have to follow the peace, because it's the only thing that really gives you a consistent reading. You can't go by your emotions, although it's important to feel our feelings.
Right.
You can't always go by the intellect, because sometimes that distracts from the core issues of the heart and soul. So that's my measuring stick, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And I'm passionate about lots of small things. Certainly family, my husband and our family. I'm very passionate about our family, and the time that we have together is critically important to me.
Yeah.
But I have
refilling.
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly. And I have hobbies and interests, and
I can't believe you have any hobbies, because since launching this Hananiah House, which is what you're the co-founder of, you're very busy. And I know there have been times where we were planning to meet or whatever, and you're like, I got a call, I can't meet. So tell us about your daily contribution in this world.
Well, Hananiah House, as you know, is a program for women who are leaving prison.
Mm-hmm.
I was a volunteer at the prison and still am. I'm a volunteer chaplain at the women's prison here in Nashville. Started volunteering there in 2008. And so you do the math. I don't remember the years anymore.
That's a lot of years.
It's a lot of years. And that was my part-time thing while I was homeschooling at near the end of the homeschooling years, or not the end, but anyway. And I had been involved in teaching the women who were there, who were residents at the rehabilitation facility, about anger management, because that's been my personal struggle. And I was really passionate about teaching them that. But the more time I spent there and then becoming a volunteer chaplain, the more I realized it doesn't help them to have all these new tools but have no place to go when they get out. And when I started learning about the statistics in Tennessee, particularly for women, but there were hardly any homes for women in halfway houses, that kind of a reentry program. We don't call ours a halfway house because we really feel like it's more than halfway. They've come so far. Their courage it's monumental. I can't even talk about it without getting emotional because these women are so strong and so fragile at the same time. They have been through so much trauma, so much disappointment in themselves and others, and it's very amazing to me even now to see how they bloom when they're just getting a little bit of sunlight and fresh air, and So
and support and love.
Support and love
and boundaries.
Definitely.
Now I understand a little bit more. When we visited the Hananiah House, I saw a different side of you, and now I get it. That's from being a mom of 5 boys, because there are boundaries.
There have to be. It's not safe for anybody if there are boundaries.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. Nobody grows well without some kind of boundary.
Right.
So, that's a very important part of the program, and it's difficult sometimes. That is one of the challenges.
Well, you seem to do that well.
I'm naturally bossy. What can I say?
Wait, no, I didn't mean it that way.
Well, my brother and sister would say I'm naturally bossy.
Are you the eldest?
I am.
Okay, there we go. I'm the youngest. I get it. So,
it's funny.
So what more can you tell us about Hananiah House? Like, what is it like? I have been to the houses, but our listeners have not. So,
well, let me describe it.
Describe the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. If I just go on too long, you'll stop.
No.
So we have 2 houses that are program houses. So the women who come to that house actually work through an 8 to 12 month program, growing in independence and in self-awareness, and learning how to set boundaries that are safe and healthy for them and for those around them who love them, their family members, their children. And it's a house like a home. Our
in a neighborhood,
desire,
nice neighborhood.
Yes, from the beginning, our desire was that it would be a welcoming, warm place that would feel like a home. When they walked in the door, it would feel like a real home, not institutional in any way. And that is what we strive to do. We have also an alumni house, which was our original first house, but we had a fire a year and a half ago, and the fire destroyed the house. Basically, we had to rebuild the house from scratch. So God picked us up and moved us to another house, and then neighbors across the street, after 6 months of being there, they approached me about renting their house. They were moving back to California. And I could not believe it. I cried because I had been praying for that. My husband had been saying, absolutely not. You don't have time. This is not going to work. And I said, okay, I get it. You're right. I'm just going to keep praying. I'm just going to see, but if it were like on the same street, if it were on the same block.
It's like across the street.
It is
really.
literally
it is.
catty-corner. It's amazing.
Not a very far commute for you between places.
No, or for the other residents. So the 2 houses are back and forth, and they get to be community together, as well as within the house, which is really nice. If they were even 2 or 4 streets apart, it would be harder.
Right.
But right across the street, sometimes I have to remind them we are in a neighborhood, and you cannot yell across the street what the code of the house is.
Right.
But it's really wonderful how it's worked out. But it was a journey getting there, But when they first are ready to, I do the interviews with most of the women. Not everyone is from the women's prison. Some come from other prisons in Tennessee. All women, of course, and we have also some people who've come from either a treatment center or from jail. and are coming, and they also qualify. We only have a couple of situations that we can't serve well, so we don't try to serve them.
Okay.
But most locations, we don't just take people straight off the street, typically because we can't provide their medical care, the medication care, particularly mental health meds, and as we know, that can be a real issue. However, when I meet with a lady at the prison and she starts expressing interest in our program, we do a couple of interviews, and then I let them know that they've been accepted or not, and if they're accepted to the program, assuming we have a bed available after they're released on parole or they have served their entire sentence, then I send a letter, and they know that they're coming. The parole board knows that they're coming. The parole office does a visit of the house, comes and checks to make sure we have an actual bed for them, that kind of thing.
Oh, that, yeah.
And then, and I didn't mention this, but we are approved by TDOC, the Tennessee Department of Corrections, to provide housing for women leaving prison on parole or probation. And we're a nonprofit, and we're faith-based in a very
like
foundational place, but also a very, you come to us with your faith questions. We don't come to you with our doctrine or our determination of how it should look for you. On the way over here today, I got a call from one of my new residents. She hasn't been here a week yet, and she called me to say, I was baptized at church today.
Oh, wow.
I was blown away because we had a very hard conversation last Friday. She had some really tough conversations with family members. They were really struggling to communicate well and to be respectful, and they were not able to respect her boundaries, and just lots of emotion, and I cried with her, and we talked, and I said, you just are going to be okay, but it's going to take time for people to trust you again, and that's okay. You're working on that, and that's okay, but they also have to earn your trust. And she told me this morning, it's like you said, Miss Angela, you got this. I was telling her I was a little nervous about going to do a podcast.
Yeah.
She said,
you got
like
this.
You said to me,
no
you
problem.
got this.
Yeah.
Anyway, and she had just decided, on Friday when we talked, she was struggling because her father is one religion, her mother's a different religion, and she was struggling because they both wanted her to hear from them what she should do.
Right.
And I was just saying, you'll know in your heart what you need to do. And she said this morning, I knew what I wanted to do.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is amazing. I cried on the way over there. I just cried because what else can you do? And what else can you do but just be grateful for the privilege, the opportunity, to be there with people in their life like that when it's such a critical time and such an open opportunity, but also a stressful, overwhelming time.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned when we visited, that you give like 30 days, right? So do you want to talk about that process?
Yes.
I mean, these are women coming out of prison, typically. Yes. How long have they been in?
We we design the program around longer sentences.
Okay.
Because, for a couple of reasons. Mainly because I was seeing a huge gap in places for people to go who had been in prison more than 5 years or 10 years.
Wow.
We have people who've been there 15, 20 years.
Wow.
I'm getting a woman tomorrow who's been in 14 years.
And now you're like out of prison, you've served your term.
Right. You haven't
done
used a
some
cell
work.
phone in 11 years.
You maybe don't even know what a smartphone is.
Exactly.
And like, you're like,
right.
Who comes to get you? Like, what do you have to take out, right? Like
nothing. Basically.
Yeah.
90% of the women have nothing. And they're so generous and courageous that they leave what they do have for others. That happens so often.
Yeah.
So they may have 2 pairs of shoes and one has no holes in it. They leave that pair for the other ones who are staying.
Yeah.
Who are still there. I love and admire these women more than I can say.
Do you get to know a lot of them chaplaining? Okay.
Yes.
So you kind of know them before they even come, and they know you. So there's trust being built there.
The other way, the main way I know them actually is because, although I don't teach anger management anymore, I still fill in here and there a little bit on things, but we offer at the prison, there's an ACA meeting, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families, and I co-lead that, I co-facilitate that meeting. And so a lot of the women will come to a 12-step meeting who would not be interested in coming to a church thing. I don't do services at the as a chaplain. My role is more administrative, family emergencies, grief counseling, prayer, just helping them through the system, talking to family members if they need to, things like that. It's not so much about leading a church service for me.
Baptizing people.
I have.
Oh,
that
cool.
has been an amazing privilege. Yeah. One of my favorite moments in all these years was I was ministering in the SEG unit, which is segregation of the general population.
Okay.
If they're under a disciplinary thing, or if they've been brought in as a underage person who can't be in with the general population for legal reasons, safekeeper. Those situations, if they've been disciplined, they're in trouble, and they keep getting in trouble, they go to SEG, and they have to be there for weeks or months. And so I used to go up there a lot and spend a lot of time in what Unit 3 is what it's called. And I was talking to one woman who we'd been talking for months, and she had a relatively new person next to her in the cell next to her. And this is, when I say talk, I'm talking about there's a huge metal door, thick metal door with a small square window, and we would make eye contact through the window. We would hold our hands up to the glass so that we could hold hands while we pray.
Wow.
And then we would talk through the crack in the door, because most of the time it's not safe always. They can't guarantee that it's safe, so the officers won't open the door flap, which is the pie flap where their food is put in. They're in that room 23 hours out of 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And sometimes for months, and I've known of people for years.
Oh, wow.
It's really, really awful. And our nation is beginning to change that and take exception to that, and our current administration of TDOC is changing some of the rules of how things have worked, and I applaud them for that, because it needs to change. It really is torture. It's horrible. But I was talking to this one woman, and catty corner to her cell, so I'm either kneeling down, or sometimes if there's a spare chair somewhere, an officer might bring me a chair, or I'd be talking to her through the crack in the door and talking to her, and she says to me at the end of our time together, well, Dorothy, right here next door, she wants to talk to you. And I said, okay, well, I'll talk to her, and so we finished, we closed in prayer, and then I talked to Dorothy, and Dorothy said, okay, well, I'm ready. And I said, okay, what are you ready for? I thought she meant anger management or something.
Right.
Most of the time I would go up there because somebody had been kicked out of anger management for misbehaving, and I would go and try to help them through some of the issues. And she said, I'm ready to accept God. And I said,
okay.
It was just like fall in your lap. You talk about reaping what you didn't, reaping what you didn't sow.
Right.
I had been sowing into one person, and the whole time this other lady was
hearing it all.
Yeah,
wow.
And she was the first person who asked me to baptize her.
So how did you baptize her? Like through the flap?
No.
No.
She was allowed to come out. She was permitted to come out.
Wow.
And there have been seasons when that's been okay, and other seasons when it was not okay, and they couldn't be baptized until they were released from the SEG unit. So that was a blessing that she was able to come out. She came down. She was escorted down in shackles.
Oh, wow.
And I can't think of the name, the title of the captain, basically, of the compound at that time. He permitted her to have the shackles off during the immersion. The immersion is a tub, a big, real baptismal. Yes, they have one there. That's that amazing. A church donated.
Okay.
And two of the chapel workers, one in particular, her desire and privilege, she calls it her desire and privilege, is to fill that tank herself for every baptism.
Oh, wow.
And you can't just plug in a hose and do it. She has to go to the sink.
One pitcher at a time.
Pitcher like that.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable, but yeah. So that was the first time I did a baptism.
Wow,
it was beautiful.
That is amazing. Yeah.
What a picture of the freedom that Jesus gives us.
Yeah.
Shackles gone.
Right. Yeah.
Just
wow.
It's amazing. So
that's wonderful. Do you ever hear from her still or not?
I did for a while. She moved back north where she was from.
Okay.
So yeah, sometimes and actually as a volunteer, she could only write to me through the chapel or through a third party. I actually hear more from people now that I have Hananiah House because they can write to Hananiah House.
Oh yeah.
As a volunteer, we're not supposed to be in touch with people outside of the the compound. It's
right.
We
right.
could lose our privileges.
Yeah,
as
you don't want to do
that. Right. So we don't. Yeah, I don't want to do that. So,
Yeah.
but with Hananiah House, because I'm running a program, that's different. I'm considered a mentor, and that's a little different.
Right.
So.
Right. So I had 2 questions. I don't know which one to go with first. What it's like those first 30 days when people come out, but then also like, how in the world did you ever get into this? Which one do you want to start first? Like, do you remember your first day you went to the prison?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Very clearly. I very
like
clearly.
how did you ever
the reason
start?
Well, 2 women from my church at the time, who are still very wonderful friends. I'm not at that church anymore. One of them in particular is still ministering at the prison.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me what I consider, had I ever thought about going to the prison, and it's kind of personal, but my season in life, I thought, was at the end of childbearing years, because I had lost a baby. I had lost into miscarriage, and I thought that was the end. And I had, as an act of, okay, I'm going with you, Lord. You know, wherever you're going, wherever you're taking me, I'll go. You tell me. You know, but I was grieving, and we had been asked to bring clothing for the homeless. There was a big homeless ministry, and I was involved in that, and I had brought some things that I didn't want to give away, but that it was time. And they came to me very soon after that, either that Sunday or the next Sunday, I can't remember now, and asked me, had I ever thought about it? And I said, no. I said, I'll pray about it. They said, please pray about it. I said, oh, I'll pray about it. I'll pray about it. You know, and I'll talk to Carl about it, my husband. You know?
Right.
At first he was like, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I said, okay, then I'll keep praying. And if you're not peaceful, then I'll know that's part of the answer. And so that was how I first went. And so I went.
And this was before the boys? No.
This was the no, I had children.
Okay,
I had children.
Okay.
Yeah, this was between our 4th and 5th son.
Okay.
And yeah, I know.
Because you have volunteer time too, then, right?
You know, it was the priority. I do not do social media. I do not spend time on a lot of stuff that is a normal part of American life. I just don't find myself drawn to that.
Right.
So, and there's no problem with it. There are many wonderful things that people do as a result of those activities. Yeah. But just for me, it doesn't bring me peace. It stresses me out. It makes my anxiety go, so
yeah.
I just don't. So
Instead,
I go visit with felons every week.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of TikTok, she does visits with felons every week. Y'all should try it.
It sounds crazy. When you say it out loud.
No, but that's amazing. So, were you afraid the first time you went?
I was nervous because I didn't know what to expect.
Huh.
I didn't know what to expect.
Where to go?
Right.
What's going to happen?
I went with Mary. Okay. She took me to her class. She taught a boundaries class at the time.
Oh, okay.
And I went with her and sat in on the class. And as soon as I walked under the barbed wire, there's this big entrance with barbed wire, and then you walk through the checkpoint. And you go through all the, X-ray machine stuff and all that. And they check everything you own, and you take off your shoes, and they look at your feet to make sure, all the safety and security stuff. And then there's another area that you walk through, and you hear the big door clang behind you, and then you hear another door clang behind you, and you're there on the compound.
Oh, wow.
And all around the compound is barbed wire.
Wow.
But it was where I was just seeking, am I belonging? Am I hearing from God or not? I don't want to do this if it's not God, and if it is, then I'm going to do it. And so as soon as I got there, the very first inmate that I met hugged me, and I was shocked.
Yeah.
And she said, "Is it okay if I give you a hug?" And I said, "Well, sure." And she hugged me, and I just thought, I felt so welcome. I was shocked. I did not anticipate feeling welcome. But that's because of the decades of volunteers who've been pouring in years before. They had a heart to see the women as women, and the women responded in kind. This is a sister. Whether I know the Lord, whether I follow your faith, whether I agree with your politics, we're sisters.
Right.
And that is a really powerful dynamic.
Yeah. That's amazing. And still remember it.
I still remember it.
Yeah.
Yes. And I remember meeting the same woman's daughter, because they were there for the same charge. And as I got to know them both, I empathized with the daughter and just said, I can imagine it must be very, very difficult. And then I described some experiences that I've had with family members, and she said, you do get it. You really get it. And she laughed and cried, and we laughed and cried and hugged each other.
Yeah.
It was a very, very equating experience. Equalizing experience.
Yeah.
It's just like everything that you think has some kind of status or value or negative worth, or all of it just kind of goes psh.
Wow.
And it's very powerful to me.
Just to relate
yes.
one-on-one
yes.
as human beings.
Yes,
yeah.
just the person in front of me. That's all I have to worry about.
Right.
Don't have to worry about what they think about anything that I think or thought was critically important.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter,
Wow.
Very important.
Very cool.
Yeah, very important for my own growth and maturity.
Well, you have been at it for a while, so.
I am 64, yes.
I didn't mean to reveal your age, but
I don't mind revealing
I'm just saying, since 2008, week after week, and all of. So you do build relationships with some of the folks, but then you probably just meet people once and never see them again sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Particularly now, because we have a lot of turnover, because the institution in Nashville is part of the transitional process of getting people who have been charged with something. Now they've gone through the court system, and now they are adjudicated, and their sentence has been set, and they are in Nashville temporarily to determine where they will be permanently. So some of the women do stay at Nashville at Deborah Johnson Rehabilitation Center permanently, but others go to East Tennessee or West Tennessee, and so that's possible that I'll see somebody, or somebody will be here for a few years and then they'll go to one of the other institutions, because it's really not at their decision, it's the system's decision.
Just getting moved around, yeah.
Right.
Where's there a bed, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, so that's the short answer. Not so short.
No,
answer
that's amazing. Yeah, how you got involved in this, and probably what continues to fuel you.
Yes.
Being a part of this. So.
Yes, it is such a rewarding, even though you couldn't call it exactly productive in a measurable sense, it is so rewarding and satisfying to be present with someone who needs presence.
Mm-hmm.
So satisfying. I know you know that as a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
You see that all the time. And it's very hard to find when you're in prison.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
So, the women, they may or may not have had a relationship with you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going through all the legal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all help with that process as well?
No, the legal stuff is all. The only thing I do is when they are going up for parole, and the parole board determines whether or not they're going to be released in advance of their sentence or not. That's basically based on their behavior and on the parole board's ability to see what it is that they're looking for to show that the women might be ready or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to the parole board hearings for the women who ask me to.
Okay.
If I have something to say because we've had relationship and they met with me and we've done a class or we've done something, then I will speak on their behalf if they ask me to.
Okay.
Most of the time they want me to speak, but I won't speak unless I really know them, because it's not helpful. It doesn't contribute anything,
Right.
But if they've asked to come to the program and I've interviewed them and I've got to know them, then I speak as their home plan, basically.
Okay.
And I say, this is what the program provides, and this is what I see and why I think she'll do well in our program,
And then you, literally, if she's released right then, you take her home.
Right, they're not released
Hananiah
right
House.
then. They're not released right then. There's
Okay.
always somewhere between 30 days and 40 days usually between the time that they're actually before the board person, and then they get their final result back, because the board person who does the hearing makes a recommendation to the rest of the board, and out of the 7 people on the board, they have to have 4 votes in their favor for parole. So if they get that final, then they know, and then they start the reentry program. The reentry program department does all of the paperwork and stuff like that, with records helping, and all of that is supposed to be all ironed out, and then they come and say, do you have a bed? My acceptance letters always have the disclaimer, pending availability.
Right.
and also I require the women to do a drug screen the moment they walk in the house.
Okay.
I pick them up at the prison. I take them to the house. We do a drug screen. If the drug screen is positive, they do not stay at the program. Because if they cannot stay clean knowing they're getting out, they are not ready for our program.
Right.
So that's very painful, but it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened.
Yeah. Everything has happened.
Well, maybe not everything.
So you pick them up, they come to your home, and then can you describe the program a little bit more?
Yes. As you said, the first
30 days. I remember the 30 days.
Yes, the first 30 days is our time of, we call it stillness and self-awareness, the homecoming tier.
Okay.
That's what it is. So they come home to this strange place that they've never been before, so it's a misnomer, but it is the idea that you're coming home to yourself. You're coming home to who you really are. And you may not know that person yet. Mm-hmm. So that first 30 days is just an introduction. You're getting to know who you are when you're not at prison, when you're not trying to maintain whatever it is that got you to the place where you are, whether it was addiction or mental health or criminal behavior that became, life-threatening. There's a reason people are there. Mm-hmm. It's not always that they're guilty of the crime they're charged with, but it's always that there's something not right going on and they need there are times that people are arrested and charged and are innocent and serve many years. We've seen that over and over in the system. But most of the women that I have met over the years have not tried to tell me they're innocent. They've not tried to say, no, this didn't happen. And the ones who did made a very good case, and I believe them. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the first 30 days is about figuring out who you are, who you want to be, getting a feel for it. It's only 30 days. So obviously you're not doing enough in that time period. Yeah. But it's a start and it's a focus so that they realize this is important to this program. Why is it important to this program? And why do I have to do this stupid stuff? It's because
what are all these rules I've just agreed to?
Yeah, it's not just the rules. That's really not the part that bothers most of them. They're coming from a place where the rules are constant and
true.
Really hard to explain sometimes. Those rules are sometimes really maybe not irrational, but obscure in their reasoning,
mm-hmm.
But they resist the stillness and the quiet. It's very difficult for most of us. Imagine if you or I were told, right now, starting today, you have to sit still for 30 days. No, you can't do this. No, you can't go running around. No, you can go to church and you can go to 12-step meetings, and that's it. Everything else is about your program work and focusing on yourself. Mm-hmm. It would drive you crazy. Mm-hmm. Most of us in our culture would be weirded out. Yeah. And that's
like, what am I supposed to do?
Right, exactly. What am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Then you're doing it right. Because you're asking yourself questions. So we have written a manual, and everybody goes through the manual, and then we go through each tier. There are 4 tiers to graduation. After the 30 days, there's 4 tiers. And the tiers are only timed in the sense that we expect there's a range of time that you'll be in one tier, but the range can be beyond that and it can be below that. It's just the minimum is what we kind of designed each tier for. Okay. Thinking in terms of, 8 months is reasonable to finish this program. Most people finish it in 9 to 12 months. Okay. We have had a couple that actually finished in 8 months, but they were really
the overachievers.
Yes. They were achievers, that's for sure.
The Hananiah House overachievers.
That's right, the Gold Star program.
So they after their stillness, what are the next program steps?
Then, in order to graduate from any tier, but in particular the homecoming tier, you have to have written your goals out for the next tier. We do weekly goal setting meetings and talk through the goals, and we evaluate every week, how those goals go from last week, and they learn about prioritizing, they learn about, and of course everyone is at a different point. Some people know all about it, they could teach me. Some people have never heard of it before, and they're just amazed and thrilled, and some of them have never heard of it before, and they're disgusted and appalled. Right. And we have to just kind of help everybody get to a place where they can deal with it. I have had a couple of people who left the program because they could not deal with goal setting. It was just not what they wanted to do with their time. Mm-hmm. One of them, unfortunately, sadly, is back in prison. But there's only so much you can offer you
Right.
know? And if there had been if she had left the program in a different way, we would have facilitated her finding another program that might have been a better fit. But that's not how it went. So, you know. But it is difficult. It's not that it's hard. It's difficult because it requires us to still our own mind. It's a meditation sort of process, even though it's not necessarily about meditating. But it is very difficult to
being centered.
Exactly.
And being very clear about, like, okay, what do I need to do this week?
Right. To be purposeful.
Because the I mean, you've told me before, like, the women are not necessarily all from Nashville. Many of them are moms.
Yes.
Maybe want to get their children back.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Many
of them still have custody, but someone else, or maybe custody is the wrong word, they still have parental rights and access, but they don't have, obviously they haven't had custody in years, or, you know, so
some of them have to break off old relationships that weren't helpful.
Absolutely.
Might have to, I mean, I can imagine changing the family pattern or how they interact with the family.
Yes.
That might have been a part of even landing themselves in prison.
Right. And many of the women who come to me,
hard.
Yeah, who don't have to come to me. They could go home. They could go to a different family situation, you know. Or they even might have the wherewithal financially to set up for themselves in some way. But if they're on parole, the board has to approve their home plan. And if the home plan is problematic, like there's still people using in that home, or there are people who are, you know, not gainfully employed, there are different reasons why you might not be able to go home. But most of the women who apply say, I don't want to go back to my old situation because I'll do the same thing.
Right.
If I'm around the same people, I'll do the same things I always did, and I'll end up back here, and I don't want that. I'm tired of this. I don't want this life anymore.
Yeah.
So when I hear that, I think, okay, sounds like they're really ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I've heard you say before, a lot of the women probably already have experienced quite a bit of trauma in their lives before they even end up in prison.
Yes.
And then they're in prison and there's more trauma.
Yes.
Kind of compacted on top of that. And so here they are on your doorstep.
Well,
right?
and that's why we designed a trauma-informed program. Because you can't, I don't think it's possible to provide services for women who are hurting that much and expect them to function at any level without excellent emotional support and trauma-informed counseling, trauma-informed rules and postures in the program, and how we treat other people. All of those things help a place be safe or not safe. So I think the hardest thing for some people is recognizing they had trauma from their family of origin. A lot of people have a hard time recognizing that. But there are enough classes in the prison and enough programs out there available to them that it's not the first time they've ever thought about it before. When I first started going out there were a lot of people that had never believed that about their situation. It's not so often the case anymore.
Yeah.
So, of course, and it's been a while, so some of this has started penetrating the school systems and other ways.
Right, yeah. Schools are being trauma-informed schools.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
Exactly. So, and that makes a difference. So,
yeah.
And there also, I think the Me Too movement has helped women realize that they're not alone in domestic violence situations.
And like what happened to them should not have happened to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't their fault. It still isn't their fault. They still should not be paying a price. And that needs to stop. We need to stop that. And so that has helped. It makes a difference. So,
yeah.
And from tier to tier, as they design their goals for week to week, they start thinking more long term. A lot of times, because so many of the women have self-medicated and become involved in addiction or some kind of substance abuse or codependent emotional addiction, basically, those things have to, they get a chance to surface in that first tier and in the second, the homecoming tier and in the first tier, and then in the second tier. That's usually when people start hitting a wall, because they've been there 3 months to 4 months, and the honeymoon's over. It's not fresh and new and wonderful to be out anymore. Now the pressure's building. They've been working, and I have to go back to work again and again and again, and it's leering before me for the years to come.
Right.
And that's overwhelming, because most of them have not had any kind of structure that was healthy and positive
Mm-hmm.
long term.
Because after the 30 days, they do have to
Yes.
have employment.
Yes,
right?
they're required to even if they qualify for like disability, we can accept some disability patients, but they have to be able and willing and wanting to work 20 hours a week at least. Because
Mm-hmm.
we are a TDOC program, that is not required of every TDOC program, but we require it, and most programs do require a working house.
Mm-hmm.
So we are determined to help them find somewhere to work, something that will be satisfying to them in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, how long can you live with this? And that's part of what we talk about in our goal meetings. Look, this is not an ideal job for you. Your personality does not enjoy this. You don't like the people that you're around. We got to find something else. How long do you think you can give yourself? It's just freeing for them to think about they have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
They're not stuck here. In
Right.
prison, if you're assigned a job and you don't show up for that job, or you decide to leave that job, you get punished for that.
Right,
You know?
right.
You get
Yeah.
written up for it.
Yeah.
And then you
Wow.
serve time in segregation if you don't.
Right.
It's just, all kinds of re-traumatizing old
Yeah.
wounds. So having choices is very important, but the boundaries are all equally important. So
Mm-hmm.
we help them get to work. That's a big problem. A lot of people end up losing jobs because they can't get transportation to where they're trying to
They
work.
might not have a car, right?
Right.
They
They
probably
might not
don't
have
have
a
a
house.
lot of money,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. They might not have a
So-
home. Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
So part of what we do that that whole first tier and into a little bit of the second tier is provide transportation. Either we take them ourselves, me or my day manager, or our lead resident, who is a graduate of the program, lives on the premises, spends the night on the premises. The day manager is there 2 to 3 days a week. I'm there 2 to 3 days a week, and then the other day, there's always somebody there who can help them get where they're going
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
if they've planned ahead, and if they've learned how to ask for help.
Right.
And then we also start helping them with independent transportation by setting up a Lyft account for them. So they learn very quickly it's really expensive to ride a Lyft
Right.
back and forth to work.
Yeah.
It's going to cost half of your day's wages if you're making $15 an hour.
Right.
So,
right.
You don't want to, but it's a great way to budget, to learn how to budget.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, a lot of the women are from smaller communities. They don't have a bus service. They've never ridden a bus in their life, and it's very, very scary.
Oh yeah.
To get lost in Nashville, and you've lived in a house in a town where there were 4 or 5 big streets.
Right.
It's not a joke that
Right.
there was one red light, and if you blink, you missed it.
Yeah.
And
That's my hometown.
yeah,
So-
it's real, and it's very hard to
Mhm.
transition from this huge structured place that told you when and what to do all the time, all day long. It's maddening, but it is there's a certain sense of safety. It's false safety, but it becomes part of why people get institutionalized, or they become institutionalized mentally. They
Mhm.
start to expect to be told what to do. They start to depend on not having to make decisions. And that's another reason that having a program to help them, and ours is not the only program that does this, not at all, to help them stagger the steps into independence.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, going from being told everything to you're free, figure it out, right? That's
exactly.
a big gap. So
exactly.
some way to help. Because, your program is designed, hopefully most of them are, so that the cycle stops. People
Yes.
don't end up back in prison,
Yes,
right?
that's
We
the
don't
goal.
want that happening again.
Right. That's everybody's goal, I think.
Right.
And I've never met someone who works in this field who didn't want that to be the end story of their
Right.
residents. I know there are programs that are not nonprofit, and it's about the profit more than it is for us, but they still have a desire to serve people who need help,
Mhm.
and that's not nothing,
Right, right.
So
yeah.
So it's a challenge to meet needs on a daily basis, and yet not facilitate a sense of entitlement,
Mm-hmm.
or facilitate a sense of I'm receiving charity and some kind of
Or
shame or
dependence
something
kind
going
of
on
thing.
with
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. There are some ways that it gets tricky,
Mhm.
and there has to be a balance, and it can be challenging to find a balance, and each person's different, so you don't know what they're going to need the most at first, but
Right.
it's pretty easy to tell.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I took one of my new residents shopping recently. So during the first 30 days after I pick them up, we go home, we do the drug screen, we give them their welcome bag, they start unpacking in their room, and then I say, okay, we're going to go buy you some basic necessities and some basic clothes. What do you feel that you need? I want you to make a list. 3/4 of them cannot make the list.
Yeah. You're a strict mama.
I know, I am. Because otherwise, I die in Walmart. You know?
Yeah,
I just can't deal with it.
Right.
So that's partly just for my own selfish reasons, but partly it's so they recognize there's always going to be choices.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
there's always going to be decisions, and you just have to prioritize. And it may not be the right decision, but you know what? You'll live through it. So you got 2 pairs of jeans instead of XYZ. It doesn't matter. It's just you get to make the choice.
Right.
And I think that's more important than them doing it right every time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we never do it right every time. We're humans.
Right.
So you might as well get used to the idea that there might be
Yeah.
It's not even a mistake necessarily. It's just not. It's not.
The choice between good and better.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
And
Something that could be more helpful or more beneficial.
Precisely. Yeah. Precisely. And what's going to really help here, as opposed to, well, maybe I don't really need that nose piercing just yet. Maybe I can wait until I'm, But that's also a personal decision, and there's some things I restrict and some things I don't. And if somebody has the money and they've paid up their food and their fees and their debts, their parole costs, all the things that are their expenses, and they want to spend their money on their money they've earned, not a scholarship money or money that a family member's given them, for a specific reason. I say, okay, is that what you want to do? You really think it's okay for me to do that? I said, well, what do you think? Well, it's probably a little soon for me to do that. Well, then maybe you should wait a little bit until you have more peace about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not that I don't have peace exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just see
you have these conversations all day long,
all
don't
day
you?
long.
Yeah. How many residents do you have in your? You have 2 houses, but in the first house.
In that house right now we have 4 residents, and in the other house we have 4. Well, no wait, we have 5 residents in the first house and 4 in the second house right now. We have 1 more bed in the second house, and we have 3 more beds in the first house.
Okay.
So, and we're getting another lady tomorrow, so that will be. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the challenges for me is adjusting to the turnover and how unpredictable the turnover is. Because sometimes you think this person has got it together, they are so sure, they know what they want, they're speaking it, they are living it, and then they get out and it crumbles. And you don't know necessarily why.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know why, and they aren't able to articulate it, or they aren't able to receive the help, or they've already had an agenda from the beginning and they're playing out the agenda. And there's nothing about that is fun or easy, but it's also part of the addiction struggle. And although I personally haven't dealt with substance addictions, I have dealt with addiction in my life to anger, and I used anger as a drug to numb my other feelings, and so I can relate to them in that way. And with my ACA background, I can talk to the women about, look, I know what this feels like.
Right.
It's not what you're going through precisely, but I know what it feels like, and I can just ask them questions. Does it feel like this? Because if I were in your situation, I'd feel like this. Does it feel like that? And they'll correct you if you're wrong. If you're off base, people will tell you.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what I'm feeling. Okay,
yeah.
You're right.
Well, good. Then they at least are recognizing their feelings.
Exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
naming them. Yeah.
Yes, and that's. We have a wonderful person who comes. She is a spiritual director, and she comes every Monday and spends an hour and a half to 2 hours with us. That's our house meeting time. We go through a process, depending on the day. It can be all kinds of different things. We explore different prayer methods, different practices of spirituality and growth and healing. We play games. Sometimes we do stuff like just a creative action, or a creativity of some kind to kind of release those things. And that is a really great place for building the community and opening up to, oh yeah, I'm in this for a reason. This is where I need to be. This is working. This is what I need.
Yeah.
And there's also a great way to confront challenges within the housemates, within the, because you got people. You're going to have some conflicts.
It's a regular house.
Exactly.
It's not like an institution. You walk in and you're in the living room. You go into the kitchen, right? And then there's bedrooms. So
yes.
And like upstairs, downstairs bedrooms.
Yes.
And I don't remember, are the women in their own room or do they share?
It depends on what the turnover is, but most of the rooms are shared rooms. There's a single room in each house that's just for one person.
Okay.
But and then we have the ability in the first house to help people who are in wheelchairs to provide housing. That. Yes. And that's a different thing that I didn't really anticipate coming in. But we have citizens in wheelchairs in prison, so of course they're going to get out at some point.
Right.
And so I'm really grateful that our landlord said, yes, you can put up a ramp.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that we're able to do that I really didn't anticipate being able to do.
Yeah.
Being able to offer, and that's the grace of God too. So.
Yeah. So it is a much smaller setting than they've been used to.
Definitely.
But there still can be challenges, personality challenges. And in the first house, are they all at a similar tier, or is everybody at a different tier?
I don't put them all in one house based on tiers.
Okay.
So it just kind of works out in the frame. I talk to the lead resident, I talk to my house manager and say, what do you think? This is the person. I get a feel that she's probably got this kind of leaning. She's probably more in personality like this person. What do you think about this bed or this room or this house? And we recently had a woman who relapsed, and we were able to get her into a rehab program with the help of her case manager through the McNabb Center. She's been in the system since she was a kid. And then into the legal system. She was in foster care and in trouble from the time she was really young, and a lot of it was just lack of the actual diagnosis and dealing with the issues. She was just trying to cope, and she didn't have any tools to do that. But she does have some family support, and she has some young relatives, young niece and nephews that she just worships, and they have been enough motivation for her to be willing to go to rehab.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, it is good. And when she finishes rehab, she is wanting to come back to us. So that will be a first time that we've done that. We've had people want to come back, and I've had a couple of people that I said, okay, we'll try it. These are the parameters, and they didn't meet the parameters, so they didn't stay long. But some people never want to leave, and then we have to have parameters about, okay.
This is not a permanent home.
That's right. This is a goal for the future.
Right.
But we do have that option to become a lead resident if you are so inclined, and that's wonderful for us, because it means somebody's in that position overnight of helping, who's been through the program, who really understands what the program rules are and understands what the purpose is. More than anything else, that's what's important. It's hard to transfer that knowledge without some experience. So
right,
that's important. And the personalities, normally, they get along in prison. They can figure out a way to get along here.
Right.
It can work, but it's not everybody's going to be best friends, and I try to tell them that's okay. That's not a requirement of graduation.
Right.
Do
they do meals together, or like
sometimes,
cook together, or shop together?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
We have a wonderful partner in Donaldson area, which is where our alumni house is. A partnership with 1035, which is a nonprofit, kind of upscale thrift store, and they sell their products or their merchandise, but they also support programs like ours and other programs like with young teenage girls and just people who might feel they need things they can't provide for themselves or their families can't provide. It's a wonderful program. If you have clothes to donate, if people that are asking you, where can I get my clothes, I always refer them to 1035, because it's a great place to shop. And they give a $100 certificate to each of our residents.
Oh, cool.
So they can go and shop and pick out. So we'll go to Walmart and buy them basic foundation garments and pajama type stuff and things, a couple pairs of jeans, whatever. And then we take them to 1035, and they'll get, 2 bagfuls of stuff usually.
Wow.
Yeah. Pocketbooks, belts, jewelry, whatever they want is their priority. They can get that. Coats a lot of times. Just,
cool.
Yes, shoes even. So
yeah,
it's a wonderful partnership. They
awesome.
do a great job. Yeah.
So how do you know when they're ready to move from like one tier to the other, or especially like when they're ready to be done? I mean, there's obviously some kind of goals, structure, something.
Yes. Well, part of the how do I shorten this a little bit? Basically, in our manual, we give each woman a manual when they get there. It's a handbook that we've written for the program.
Okay.
And it involves areas of growth and challenge.
Okay.
In each tier. They set their own goals in those specific areas, but it would be like 8 different areas, career or education, health, mental health, recovery, spiritual life, relationships, all kinds.
Okay.
And then there's one that we just kind of call life goals now. So it could be something like, well, I want to have a hobby. I don't have a hobby. I don't have anything I do just for fun, except watch TV, whatever. Right. And then they fill out and think about these goals all through the tiers. By the end of each tier, they're preparing for the next tier, and there's a theme to each tier. So the first tier is basically, like we talked about, the 30 days of self-awareness and stillness. The next tier is more intensive growth in the area of knowing who you are. So in the first tier, we might do a few little short, spiritual gifts test, or a personality test like 16 personalities, or the Myers-Briggs, or a test that my co-founder designed called Action Quotient, which is kind of like the Colby test, but better, in my opinion. We decided it was better.
She did a better job.
She did. She did a fabulous job. And it's online, and so it's free, and everybody can get to it, as opposed to paying $55 for the Colby test. So anyway, and then we require each of our women to commit to at least 3 professional counseling appointments. That's the minimum. If they want more, we will pay for more. Or they can go through public health types of opportunities like the mental health co-op or the Centerstone program, where they provide counseling at a reduced rate or based on income, that kind of thing. And some insurance with the safety net insurance, sometimes you can get that covered also. But we want them to have an experience of real counseling that can really address the issues that have been long-term issues. So I can help because I've had a lot of experience with this sort of work, but I'm not a professional. And I want them to know the difference, so that when they go looking and someone says, well, you need a counselor here, why don't you go see who's my friend, and they can help you. And that's not professional counseling. And even pastoral counseling has a wonderful role, as you well know, but it's not professional counseling unless the person is on staff as a professional counselor, and they're that's different.
Training as a therapist.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So so that's really, really critical to me. If they won't cooperate with that tells me they're probably not ready for the next tier.
Okay.
And then in each tier, it might not be that particular thing, but there are also people who are just not ready at a certain tier. So I say, okay, I want to hear from you 2 or 3 reasons when you will know you're ready. What are you looking for to know you're ready? Because it's not comfortable. No one's ever going to be comfortable the first time they go to counseling. Just picking up the phone and making the appointment is difficult. But what are you looking for? And so then it becomes more about, okay, I can't just make an excuse about this. I have to decide how I want to do this. And that helps. That helps them determine or not determine. And sometimes, like I said, that second to third tier is a very, it's almost like a guarantee that people will either really start running with the program or they'll kind of disappear. Yeah. First emotionally and then physically out.
That happens.
Yeah.
So if they were to leave your program in that way, because are all your women on probation or not?
Not all of them.
No, okay.
Some of them have expired their sentences. Some of them, before they got to me, they were already, they were in a different program, and they had graduated from that program, but it wasn't a long enough program for them. They wanted something else, and so they wanted to come to me. But the criteria is you have to start from the beginning with me. So that means, you know, it's a very unusual person who wants to do a 4-month program and then come and do an 8-month program.
Right.
But if they are really self-aware and understanding why they need a longer program, then I will definitely consider them.
Yeah.
So, but most of the women, I would say more than probably 3/4 are either on parole or probation, and they recognize that there are limits. Now, what happens if they decide to leave my program? If they leave without the parole officer, their supervising officer's permission, then that can be really bad for them, because that could be a violation of their
end up
parole.
back in jail, right?
Yes. So, and we have had a couple of people that did that. They left without permission, they ran, they absconded, it becomes an official charge, and they're back in prison. It's tragic. But it's also an indication they didn't want to do what it takes to stay
right
in the rehabilitation world, you know.
I mean, part of it is it's emotional work, but it's also like kind of life skill kind of work, like getting my life to a point where I can be a individual, an adult, living in this society,
exactly, adulting,
productive,
like they say, you know,
adulting, being in healthy relationships with my children, my partner, or whatever. So
those things are all, you know, you can't teach someone all of that in a 9-month or a year period, obviously. You know, otherwise we'd all be perfect parents and we'd all be, you know,
we wouldn't have this problem.
Right, we wouldn't need God.
Exactly.
We wouldn't need a savior, really.
You wouldn't be here.
No, exactly. That's right. I wouldn't need to do this. No one would need this kind of work. Yeah, it's a lifelong journey, and that's important too, because some people feel like they've missed it and they can never make it up. Mm-hmm. And that's not what this is. This is not the way the world works. It's not the way life works. Mm-hmm. But for people who've been in substance addiction, there are some real roadblocks that have to be removed before they can start doing those things. So the emotional work, if they're used to numbing, we won't accept people who are on Suboxone, medically assisted treatment, they call it.
Okay.
MAT. We don't accept that because I don't personally think I can. First of all, I don't want to be responsible for the medication being in the house in such a way that I have to dispense it every day, or they have to be somewhere every day to receive it. That's a problem. But that's just a tiny problem compared to the large problem of if you are still numbing your emotions, you cannot do this emotional healing work. Because if you can't feel your feelings, you can't understand why you're doing and reacting and doing the things you're doing.
Right.
So that we made that decision and put it on our, our listing with TDOC. I'm confident that that will affect who we get sometimes, and that's okay, because the ones who come saying, I don't want to do that, they've recommended that I do that, but I don't want to do that, I have a chronic problem with relapse. I said, okay, well, we will start where you are and we'll see how we do, you know. If you cannot do it without Suboxone and you want to transfer to a program that provides that opportunity, that's an option. You know, you can make that choice.
Yeah.
But so far we haven't.
Excludes you from Hananiah House. That's all.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
And there are other things that could exclude you as well. You know, you couldn't be in our program if you had had a relationship, romantic relationship, involvement with another woman who's in our program. That's not going to work because the house dynamics will have a big problem.
Yeah.
I guarantee you it will become a big issue. So we don't do that. You know, just like we don't let you have your boyfriend come and spend the night in the house. That's not going to happen because I don't want to deal with the issues, and I know nobody else in the house really wants that either.
Right.
Everybody wants a safe place emotionally and just calm-wise. Drama is just not fun.
Is there a rule about if anybody can come to the house at all? Like, I know we toured, but you gave us a private tour.
Right.
But
the rule is that you can request a visitor's pass for a certain length of time, and there have to be certain parameters. For example, our day manager, myself, or a house manager has to be there, and the rooms that you can visit in are the public common rooms.
Okay,
and that would be the max of maybe 2 hours.
Okay.
It cannot be boys over the age of 13, 14, just because you'd be surprised. You'd be amazed. But, and it can't be, we don't have any clients who have child assault or abuse charges because our insurance won't cover it.
Okay.
So we can't serve those people, but but those kinds of rules can come into play depending on the program that they're going to. And then the other thing is we have a pass system. Anytime you leave the house, you have to sign out. You have to have a pass. If you're in the first 30 days, you can't go anywhere without another housemate. That doesn't prevent every problem, but it cuts down on a lot of them. And then if you want to have a visitor, let's say you're in, because so much trauma involves women who've been abused in some way or assaulted, sexually or otherwise, we don't allow men to come into the house unless it's a private tour like I have.
Okay.
The others are gone,
right.
and I'm just taking you through the tour. And that's to protect the emotional safety of
It's
the
like too much of a trigger, I would imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not worth risking them even thinking about relapsing because of that. Or having nightmares. We have clients who have nightmares all the time about trauma.
Yeah.
I'm not going to add to that if I can avoid it.
Right.
So what we do, and to make up for that, is, for example, if we have a married client and she and her husband want to go spend the day together, that's fine. Here's the pass. Here's what you have to do to fill it in. I don't let my women go with someone else unless I know their driver's license and their tag numbers and that they have car insurance. That's just a minimum standard that I have. If that person can't meet that, I said, you know what, it's okay. You can still visit with them. They just have to find someone else to take you. That's all. And
you have learned a lot, girl. I mean, this is impressive.
Some of this,
You're
some of this I learned from other people who shared their wisdom with me.
Yeah.
And some of it I just thought, I don't want that. So.
Or some of you might have learned the hard way.
The hard way. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of being the co-founder. You can kind of decide, here's how it's going to be.
Yeah,
right?
I can change it. My board is very understanding. We have a small board, but they talk to me about what they have concerns about, and we, and they are really good about pitching in when there's an issue and stuff goes on.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
What is the greatest joy of this work for you?
Calls like the one I got today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just turned my life over to God. She said, I stopped holding back because I can't do this. I said, you're right. I had to stop holding back too.
Yeah.
You have to be all in. And that is the greatest joy, because I know no matter what happens with their sobriety, whatever happens with their career, their job, their families, if they've really given their hearts to a life of spirituality with God, they're not going to miss out on
They're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That is, and then one of the great joys is picking them up from the prison.
Yes, I know that you alone will do that.
That's right. I won't share
You're
that.
selfish about that.
I'm selfish about that. I'm selfish. There have been a couple of times when there were two people to be picked up in two different locations, and so that I had to just let it go.
What is it like?
It is like, oh gosh, what is it like? It's like jumping in the deep end of a waterfall pool. It's like you're coming out of this hot, sweaty hike, and you just go, whoosh, and you get splashed on by the person who did the jumping.
Yeah.
She lived through all this, and now she's walking out.
Yeah.
And she's not alone. She's got somebody who knows her that she knows.
Right.
If she has family members, she's going to see them the next couple of weeks. They can come to the house and pick her up, and they can go out and spend some time together. Later, she'll have more time, more privileges with that. I mean, it's just, I don't know how to describe the joy of watching someone's life come into its own. I mean, these women have my admiration and deep respect, because they have not just survived, but they've learned how to thrive.
Right.
And some of the things they still have to learn are easy. I can teach people how to have a grocery list. I can teach people how to shop with, long-term thinking. I can teach how to budget. There's lots of things you can learn, but having resilience, that's something that has to come from within you with God's grace. I don't think there's another recipe for resilience. Maybe there is, and I'm yet to learn that.
Well, I'm sure a lot of them have lived through some really horrific experiences that we never even want to think about, let alone.
No.
Yeah.
But being able to sit with someone talking about those experiences, it allows me personally to increase my joy and appreciation of my moments of joy and freedom I can be grateful in ways that I wouldn't know how to be grateful. I wouldn't know there was something else
right.
in some areas.
Yeah.
I've been protected in a lot of ways, not in every way, but in a lot of ways. So yeah, definitely. It's the
I don't want to ask you about the challenges.
Oh, it's okay. We can talk about challenges.
I should have asked you about the challenges before the joys, but anyway.
Well, that's what editing's for.
That's right. That's right. So what about the challenges?
For me personally, the biggest challenge is to not lose heart when someone leaves in the middle of the night or causes a major scene and disrupts everybody's peace for the next week. Those are hard things, and it's hard. The thing I pray for is that I won't be jaded, that I won't see the next face as somehow, no, they're going to do it again, and start thinking this somehow about me and it getting to me, and that's what is a big challenge. I don't want to go there, and I don't want to, the challenge of being present but not being out of balance, with my own spiritual life. It's easy to get overwhelmed. It's so easy to get too focused on the ministry and not on God. It's too easy to get focused on the stuff and the projects and the things instead of the people that are right in front of you. Those are things that I'm always aware that I have to balance. I have to find a way to balance it, and it's not always easy, but family life, work life, those are things that are challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't live close.
No, I don't
live
live
hike,
close.
but maybe that's a good thing. So
maybe
that
it
you're,
is. Maybe it is. I mean,
like you can kind of leave it behind as much as possible.
Exactly.
I'm sure you don't ever really leave it all behind.
Well, and I guess there's a way to do that if you have more staff and
Yeah, you're a
everybody's on the
little. You
rotation.
guys are a little.
We're
little
small.
group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the amount of people that we serve, we're pretty small. I mean, most people who have 12, 14 beds, they have more staff than 1.5, So, but the other challenge is just for me, I mean, my personal challenge and the challenge the women face are all that we've been talking about,
Right.
And it's really different but for my personal challenge, I guess, aside from not wanting to be jaded and not wanting to be out of balance, I would say that seeing the fruit is not the purpose. It's easy to get distracted by numbers or, I mean, how do you weigh the value of a life that has been transformed and their child's lives have been transformed because
Right.
she's now sober and now she has a job and now she can work and now she can have the kids in her own home. All of those things are priceless.
Right.
You
Right.
know? And even if they're only, even if they've only been in existence 6 months and we don't know what the next 6 months are going to be, it's still the first time for some people.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
And so I can't think about, we still have much better rates of recidivism than the prison systems. Definitely. Much, much better. But every time someone goes back to prison, we've had 3 people so far who have ended up going back to prison in our 3 years. That's not a bad statistic, but it's heartbreaking.
Right.
And it's easy to start thinking, am I doing anything right? Is any of this making a difference? And you have to, and the girls now, I call them girls, they're my girls.
They're your girls.
The women now will look at me sometimes and go, now don't you start thinking about this? Don't you start thinking that this is something you could have prevented? That kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, you know what? They know.
That gives you a lot of control if you were the one responsible for it.
Absolutely, right? And who wants that?
No.
Yeah, no. If I could control everything, I wouldn't. No one would need this program.
Right.
But there are a lot of programs that are designed around controlling their every moment while they're with the program, so that they don't get into trouble. So then, when they get out, they don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah. So then it's just still too much structure. Then.
Yeah.
You have they end up in problems again.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had a recent arrival ask me, why don't we do 12 meetings a week, like some other programs that I've been in? I said, well, how'd that work for you? I'm like, what do you mean? I said, what do you think I mean?
Here you are.
Yeah.
Right.
And she started laughing. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. I said, I don't want my program to be the point. I want your program to be the point.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm filling every moment of the day, what are you going to do when you have your own place?
24/7. What are you going to do? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It is very individualized in that way.
It is. And that's part of the goal setting thing. It would be really hard for me to keep up with everything if we didn't have some kind of a structure that they were monitoring themselves. And plus it's very exciting for them because while they fill out all their goal sheets and then we talk about them every week, I've got on the computer screen that same list of program goals for that tier. And I'm highlighting the ones they've finished.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they come back and the next week, they see, oh, I've only got this much left in this tier.
Yeah.
And that's something cool. I learned in process. I didn't know exactly how to do that to begin with.
Uh-huh.
But it goes much more smoothly for them because they see the achievement and they sense
feel good
the
about themselves. Yeah,
exactly.
and then that helps with their resilience too, right? And their stick-to-itness, is that a word?
Yeah, I think it is.
It is now.
I think it is.
How did you come up with the name Hananiah House?
That is I wanted a word that meant grace, some capacity of grace. Hananiah means, it can be translated grace for all or grace, the goodness, the graciousness of God. Either one. The one that I can break it down for you in Hebrew is graciousness of God.
Mm-hmm.
But it is important to me that grace be the foundation, not anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else to me speaks of what Jesus did for us.
Mm-hmm.
And even though not everyone who comes to my program may believe or agree with that, they are going to be receivers of grace.
Mm-hmm.
So they will know when they leave what it tastes like, what it smells like, to be surrounded by grace. That's my prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
that's a good name.
Thanks. Yeah. I didn't actually think of the name because I was trying to use the Hebrew name, but it was just too obscure. It was too hard to pronounce. It wasn't accessible enough. And my friend, who was also she was our launch partner, basically.
Mm-hmm.
She worked for us for 6 months. The first 6 months, she helped put together furniture. She helped design things. We're still using some of the forms that she designed. I mean, she did a bunch of everything. She's a missionary, Cheryl. And she said, well, what about Hananiah? And I said, Hananiah? She said, yeah, the Hebrew name of the guy who was in the in the fiery furnace. Little did I know that there was some prophetic weight to that too.
You're in the fiery furnace.
Yeah. So Hananiah is
very cool.
Yeah, and it's one that sticks with people once they learn it. At first, it's a little
like how many ends are in there?
Exactly. What? Is there an H at the end? Yeah, there really is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if they recognize Hebrew, then they know.
That's true.
So yeah,
that's true.
So as you think about your own work in all of this, thinking a little bit vocationally, what gifts and abilities do you think you have that make you particularly suited for the Hananiah House, for this kind of work?
Years and years ago, when our older kids were young, I first read a book called Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. And they later changed the name to motivational gifts, as opposed to it was based on the list of gifts, not the one in Romans, but in Corinthians.
Okay.
And it was a very powerful book for me personally. It was a very life-giving book because it talked about your strengths and your weaknesses based on the spiritual gifts that you were endowed with at birth, not the ones that God can appoint to you in situations or transfer you from one to the next for an appointed moment or an anointed time or whatever. It's the way we're wired, right? Mm-hmm. And when I took that spiritual gifts test, I read the results to my husband. I said, I don't know if I did this right. He said, this explains so much. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, no wonder you can never no wonder it's so hard for you to do everything you want to do, because you've got this spectrum of compassion and teaching and encouragement. Mm-hmm. And it's a good combination for what I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, I think my journalism training helped me because I really like to ask questions. I want to get to the root of it. I want to know why people are doing a certain thing. I deeply believe they have reasons, they just may not be aware.
Like what's motivating this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess, and then, raising 5 boys, that taught me a lot. Teaching 5 different learning styles taught me a lot.
Oh yeah, homeschooling 5 boys. Right.
Definitely. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, do you think this is easier than raising your 5 boys?
I think I'm more equipped.
Yeah.
When I started than I was because I had done that first.
Right.
If I had done this first, maybe I'd had been more equipped for the teaching the boys. But I might not have had children if I'd done this first.
Right. No way.
I don't know. No, because I love it so much. I don't know that I would have gone back.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's time to have a family. But I really wanted kids too. Obviously, clearly.
Right. Exactly. A lot of them. So, yeah. So the gifts really encouragement, teaching, and compassion. And then that sort of is like an impression I have of you, and then seeing you at the house, kind of laying down the rules, that was like a new thing for me to see, but it totally makes sense how that has come to be a part of who you are and how necessary that is.
Yeah. You cannot work with a population that needs to learn boundaries if you can't set boundaries.
Right.
And respect other people's boundaries.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and that's part of the problem, I think, with our judicial system or our correctional system. We don't have healthy boundaries we don't provide skills and treatment. We provide more rules. And it's not just about compassion. I know there are people who feel like we definitely need more compassion, and I'm one of them in our system, but if you don't have the boundaries, if it's not safe for people, they're not going to heal.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Well, isn't it also too a question of, is this about punishment or is this about restoration, right? So, your work is very much about restoration.
Yes.
And really allowing the women to truly become who they are meant to be, so that they know they're imprinted, like, abilities from the start. So
yes, exactly.
I'm sure they've been pretty covered up. I think it's Julian of Norwich. I love this quote. She always says, we should not sin because it does not allow others to see the light of God in us. Yeah. Which is kind of an interesting way to think about it. Like, oh, okay, yeah, the things that we do and that are done to us do kind of mar that.
Absolutely.
Who we really are, that little light that's in them.
That's right.
That hopefully can come back to light.
Yes. And the shame that has covered up so much of their existence.
Yeah.
We don't want to amplify that while they're in prison. We want to set them free of that if we can.
Yeah.
And I think, there's some great programs going on at the prison, and they really do invest in the women as individuals and invest in hope, bringing hope to them.
Yeah.
I really believe deeply in the power that the church has over the gates of hell. I really do. And I haven't been very many places that were worse in terms of hopelessness than the prisons. But at the same time, when hope breaks out, it is just like the little Christmas Eve candle that starts the whole thing, and the whole room is light by the end of that.
Yeah.
Because light really does overcome darkness.
Yeah. That's what we proclaim all the time, right?
That's right.
So
that's right.
Yay. Okay, now we're getting to preaching. I have some standard closing questions I want to ask you. The first has to do with if there's a mantra or like a phrase or something that you live by.
Well,
something that you keep before you.
I keep a lot of things before me. Definitely the Serenity Prayer is a big one. I need to know the difference between what I can control and what I can't. I need that wisdom. I need that peace. Follow the peace, like I said earlier, is definitely a big way of me, a way to measure for me where I am and where I'm headed. I love the verse in John that says, take heart, in this world you will have trouble, but I have overcome the world.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great encouragement to me personally, and it's a great word of encouragement for others, I think, personally. In terms of mantra, I guess maybe this too shall pass, this too shall pass, this too shall pass.
Did your grandma teach you that?
My father-in-law.
Yeah. Very true. So, and who knows what will come of it, right?
That's right. That's right.
So,
that's right.
Do you have some resources you'd want to share at all, or any books or resources or podcasts that really fill you up?
I
love. You can go kind of either way, personally or professionally.
There's a podcast called Substance Not Psychobabble, and it's led
Substance Not
Psychobabble.
Okay.
And it's led by, it's hosted by a licensed professional counselor
okay.
here in Nashville, who I know personally, and I really love it because it cuts to the chase about a lot of things, but it's also very it dovetails really well with adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional family work, and very well. And if you can't remember Substance Not Psychobabble, you can look for Vanessa Londino.
All right,
that's the name of the hostess.
Podcaster. And you can find it on most of the major podcasts. Okay,
right,
cool.
Right. And I like anything Brene Brown has written.
Yeah.
Richard Rohr.
Mm-hmm. I got to go to the Center for Action and Contemplation.
I saw that you referenced that. I've never been there.
Oh, it was so amazing. This is a side note, viewers. It was so amazing because, you think massive, right? And it was just like a little house.
Oh, wow.
And just on the corner, I thought, where am I? I really thought I had gone to the wrong place. It was not the nicest neighborhood in the world. And I parked and it was like, okay, I'm here. But just
that's
a house that the Franciscans had kind of been there for a couple hundred years.
Wow.
And a beautiful garden kind of compound out around it. But that was it. Just a little corner.
What else do you need?
Little
right?
plot. I know. And
wow.
The person who met me there said, from this little place, we have 500,000 readers every day. That is amazing.
That's astounding.
Yeah.
That's really amazing.
Some little place,
something
huge and great
right.
and wonderful can come.
Wow.
So
wow.
Anyway, side note there.
Well, another side note.
Yeah.
I went on my first silent retreat a couple of weeks ago. Oh, it was really something.
Where was it?
It was up in Swanee,
okay.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
It was at St. Mary's. I guess it's still a convent.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is, and part of it, the compound is open for retreats.
Beautiful spot there.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
Swanee's beautiful. Monteagle is beautiful, but it was very nice.
Yeah. So silence is probably a good thing.
Very good.
You're doing your own medicine there.
Yes.
You didn't go for 30 days though, did you?
No,
of
I
stillness.
did not. I did not. The only part I had problem with, I really actually found myself, I was surprised at how relaxed I was.
Mm.
I did not struggle with the silence or the quiet, except at mealtime. I just really, I'm so...
Oh, because were you with others at mealtime?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was difficult because I think of meals as celebratory and family time, and we do big family stuff, and
yeah.
we always had a Sabbath meal together as a family when the kids were growing up, and it was really, that was challenging for me.
Yeah.
But
so, in the same trip, this is another side note, I also went to a hermitage, and I was a hermit for 3 days.
Oh, wow.
4 days and 3 nights. Yeah.
So how was that?
It was in the middle of nowhere, New
cell,
Mexico. It was kind of up on the side of the mountain at a retreat center that called the Lama Foundation, where other people live, in sustainable kind of community. But it's off by yourself, and I did not see another human being for 4 days. Wow. I loved it. I loved it. There was no electricity, no running water, and I was really nervous about this.
Sure.
But it was like, I mean, I had water, and I had a flashlight or whatever. So, but the moon was it would be different if it was right now. It was a new moon, but the moon was almost full, and so just up on this mountainside, it was wonderful. I loved it.
Sounds beautiful.
So there were some challenges to it, but
I'm sure.
Yeah, I didn't miss not having electronics, and I knew because there wouldn't be electricity or running water that I would spend more time than I would think on just the basics.
Right.
Like a cup of tea.
Sure.
But you gotta deal with all that, right?
Right,
it's not just
Build
turning
the fire.
on
It's like camping.
Yeah.
Primitive camping.
Yeah.
Right.
And just hand washing or things like that. So eating.
Was there a stream nearby or a well or something?
No, and the community supports the Hermitage, so there was a trash can I would walk to every day, and they would I'd leave a little note for them if I needed something, they would leave it there for me. So they left me water, and I just had to carry it back. But yeah, it was really out in the middle of nowhere. It was wonderful.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. So those moments of stillness are important. And I mean, if we're going to ask other people to do them, we should do them ourselves.
Exactly.
That's right.
I better put my money where my mouth is, right?
Yeah. If you want to be introspective. What I also loved was just waking up with the sun, going to bed with the sun, because it got super cold very soon after the sunset. And I would watch a sunset every night, and I just knew you better be in that sleeping bag in about 20 minutes or you're going to be freezing, So
Yeah, that's neat.
It was pretty cool. Anyway, so little side note there. Any other resources, podcasts, things that are really kind of meaningful to you want to share?
I really love C.S. Lewis, and Mere Christianity was a revelation for me. It transformed my early faith, my young faith. I had read the Narnian Chronicles as a young child, and then I read Mere Christianity when I was in college. I actually was reading it in the drop an ad line in college. In those days, you couldn't do anything online. You had to go up and
life was so archaic back then. I know.
And I was just reading Mere Christianity, standing in this 2-3 hour line, crying, and people all around me were just going by, and I was just oh, yes, this is true. Made my heart sing.
Yeah, you had to go in person to sign up for classes or fill out forms or things like that. And go see a professor. You couldn't just drop them an email and be like, hey, I want to ask about,
Yeah, so different.
We lived in archaic times.
We did. We have straddled centuries, even though.
Yeah, exactly. Don't know
centuries.
how fun that is, but yeah. So, all right. Is there anything else you want our listeners to know before I ask you our last question?
I guess I would want them to know that we are trying to build a scholarship fund for women who cannot pay for that first 30 days.
Okay.
Normally, if you're coming out of prison on parole or on probation, most of them qualify for a grant from the state.
Okay.
To pay a stipend towards their costs. The stipend doesn't cover what we put in, but because we are a nonprofit and raise funds for those things, we can give them, the things that will help them.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone's interested in donating, they can go to our website. It's Hananiah.
Yes, I should have asked you. You might want to spell Hananiah.
Yes, I will. Hananiah. Hananiah House.
Okay.
Hananiah.house. And it's not .com or anything. It's
just .house. Okay.
House, House. And there's a spot to donate, and there's all kinds of information if they want more information about our program.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a good thing I asked you that question. Anything else?
Pray for us?
Definitely would appreciate prayers all the time, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. When we visited, I think we met a woman who had she was in her 30 days.
Yes.
I think she had been out for a week or something like that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Right. And we actually have 3, I don't remember who it was that was brand new when you got there, but we now have 3 people who are in their 30 days, and we have another one coming tomorrow.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. Brandy just got out of her 30 days, and now she's in Tier 1 and has started working. And so we have two that are in their 30 days, and the next is coming tomorrow.
It's still kind of fresh. Like
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very,
Wow.
very fresh. Yeah.
Lots of prayers, and I'm sure it's a difficult time of the year too, with
Yes.
the holiday season.
Yes, it
and
is. It is. It's challenging. It is
Yeah.
challenging. Yeah.
Definitely. Lots of prayers for the Hananiah House.
Yes. Yes. Please.
What is your parting word of encouragement that you want to give to our listeners? Anything?
That person in front of you that you think you don't have anything for, just ask. Because you'll be amazed at what you actually do have to offer.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And don't underestimate the ministry of presence. You don't have to say anything. Sometimes you can just sit there and weep with those who mourn.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen that again and again and again, because how isolating it must feel to be in prison. I mean, even though you're with other people around you, but you're not with your loved ones, right? And you may not have had loved ones that were all that healthy to begin with.
Right. Or you may have been so broken in the process of finding out or trying to survive or whatever that you burn so many bridges you don't think you'll ever have loved ones again. They'll never come back into your life. That can change, and it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. You're doing amazing work. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule today. And I know when we had talked earlier about it, you said, as long as I don't have anybody coming out prison on that day. So we're glad. But tomorrow there will be
Tomorrow
somebody.
there will be. So if we'd had to schedule it on Monday, I would have had to say no.
Yeah. It's all about, yeah. Thank you so much, Angela,
You're
for
welcome,
being
Jule.
with us.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. And
Thank you.
don't forget to look for Hananiah.house online. If you have an opportunity to support, please do.
Yes,
And to
thank
learn
you.
more about the program.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Good.
We'll see you next time on Conversations for Peace. Blessings.